Hi everybody. In today's video, I got my boys here. We're gonna make a Christmas present for my wife. And it's gonna be a lampshade out of a solid cherry log. So we're gonna cut it up and get it into a rough shape and get it into the lathe so the boys can start working on it. But here it is, raw, the way it is. It's beautiful. You can see there, lots of beautiful color in there. So we're gonna go ahead and lop it off, mark a circle on it and cut off the sides because I can only have a maximum of 6 inches in the lathe. So stay tuned, you're gonna see that in a second. So the next step, we're gonna get this thing so it's roughly about 6 inches. So I've pre-measured this to 3.5. I'm gonna go like this. This is not the tightest thing in the world, but this way I got a guide of where to cut with a saw. We're gonna do that. And hopefully with any luck, I can get the saw to do the same on the other side. All right. Our next step, the circle, it's kind of hard to do that outside. I didn't have a lot of good footing, so we need to get this a little closer. It can be a little shorter, that's fine. So we're gonna go ahead and use the Sawzall and chop some of this off. All right, so next up, we're gonna go ahead and run this through the jointer. I'm trying to lop this down rather than use an axe. I wanna go kind of quick with it. So we're just gonna push it through the jointer, try to get it to rough shape, and then mount it up to the lathe. All right, so the next step we're gonna do is find center on here. And I did this in another video, so if you haven't seen that one, we'll show you here. The best way to do it is with a compass, and it's pretty darn accurate. So what you wanna do is get this compass so it is a little more than halfway of the diameter.
So probably like,
yeah,
about right there?
Yeah, and then just do a big arch.
How I gotta lock this guy.
I angle it a little bit, it always helps instead of straight up and down.
So like that.
And go ahead and draw.
There we go.
Yep. And then go just, you can see there's a line there, and just go opposite.
Yep, so about right there.
Yep. Perfect. And now what we've got here, if you can see really close there, we've got an intersection point there and there. Now what we're gonna do is draw two more.
This way, right?
Yep, exactly. And if you haven't worked with compasses often, it's a little weird at first. But it's not too bad.
Did an art class.
Exactly.
And about right there, would you say?
Yeah. That's about right. Perfect. Now our next step is put a straight edge, a line across there, and a line across there.
Here.
So after the line is drawn, you can see right here, we have our intersection point. So we drew that, and then I used a smaller compass and drew a 4-inch diameter circle. Why? Because this is what goes on the lathe. You get that centered in, you can screw it in, and that way this will probably be the base of the lamp. So we'll get that screwed in and get it on the lathe. All right, so a couple tweaks I had to do before getting this on here. These weren't squared up, so I put them on my chop saw, squared them up, found center, and remounted this, otherwise it was gonna wobble. So if you're doing something like this with a log, just make sure you get these squared up. This one I didn't have to worry about it as much because it was just gonna be in the center spot in there. But she's spinning pretty good. I put this old 1950s something Craftsman on the lowest speed, and we're gonna go ahead and start removing some material nice and slow and get it into a rough shape. Now my son has an idea that he has for this shape. So we're gonna let him run with it and we'll be taking video the whole time. Stay tuned. He has finished his final shape, and what we're going to do is we've already hit this with 40 grit to kind of get all the grooves out of it. The next step is 80 grit, followed by 120, followed by 220, and we're going to come back and take a look at it. Stay tuned. Here we are, first look after 80 grit. All right, here it is after 120. It's looking pretty good. The grain is starting to come out more. And in between coats, what we're doing is just wiping it down with some denatured alcohol. That'll bring out the grain a little bit. All right, we've got it down to 220. So you can see this grain is just popping. Absolutely beautiful. Cherry is one of my most favorite wood species. All right, next up is 320. And then we're going to get to drilling it out, and then we're going to wipe it all down with a little linseed oil. See what she looks like. So now that we've got this, so it's looking pretty darn good. Now we've got to drill a hole right down the center here. This is going to be for the wires and so on. I left a little nub up here, but I'm going to go ahead and clean that up in a bit. And then I'm also going to throw some Starbond glue, CA glue, in these cracks. It was a log, so sometimes these things check a bit, but that'll fix that up. But anyway, these are 18-inch long drills, and they're kind of nice. The larger ones have little holes in them, so you could run a wire through them for boring. It's actually pretty sweet. But anyway, I've used these for all kinds of stuff. This one you can see got a little toasty, but this should do it just fine. I've got enough height on here. So, all right, the hole is drilled. That was not too bad at all. And we've got her wiped down with one coat of linseed oil. You can see that looks pretty darn sharp. There's a couple little spots at the bottom we have to get yet, but go ahead and get that top and see how the color changes. This is just boiled linseed oil, just stuff you get at your local hardware. I usually use it for outdoor tools, things like that, but you can use it for just about anything. And once it dries up, yeah, that looks pretty sharp. We're gonna let this soak in really good, and then we're gonna give it another coat. All right, so the next step that we did was we drilled this out just a little bit larger, so that way it would hold this piece. So that is going to be epoxied in with some Gorilla Glue. Works super good. And what I've done basically is screw this onto here and set it to the right depth so it seats it properly. And then we're just going to, actually it goes this way. That's about as far as it goes in. And then we're just going to glue that in there, get it centered, and let that sit for a bit. Once it's finished up, there will be the part that holds the lampshade. That'll go in between these two. So it's a really simple kit. So anyway, that's going to be set in there in a minute, and then the next step we're going to do is down at the bottom here, we're going to find where it intersects. We're going to drill a hole straight in for the cord rather than run it from the bottom. We're just going to go right through the side, and I'm going to show you a really cool trick on how to fish that wire all the way up. Stay tuned. So just to show you the glue we're using, it's just Gorilla Glue. Stuff works really good. In fact, I even use this to patch little holes here and there. It does sand nice after it's dry. So all I'm gonna do is put a nice dab right around the threads right there, put a little bit around these, probably on the lip right there too, and then just leave it sit and dry. All right, we're in the home stretch. So I've set this down, and the goal here is I wanna try to find the ugliest side and drill a hole right here on a kind of an upward angle and meet this hole right here, which is the one we drilled all the way through. Then the goal there is going to be to fish the wire up and around that bend. Now I have a trick. and I'll show you that in just a second. But the first thing we're going to do, and it's probably going to be off camera, but I'm going to go ahead, put a punch, make a mark. Then I'm going to drill with a smaller bit straight down to that and drill it again with a larger bit until I meet the hole. Afterward, then we're going to work on fishing the wire up, and then we can work on putting the rest of this together. So stay tuned for that. We're almost done. All right, so we have a hole. It's drilled, and it looks great. Right down where we need it to be. So the last step, I'm just going to use one of these step bits, and I'm just going to clean this hole up a little bit because it's kind of ugly. And we're going to do the same for the bottom one, even though I'm not going to use it. After that, then we're going to do the cool string trick. Alright, so here's a little trick getting this thing apart too, because there's little teeth in here. It's kind of a pain. So if it is together when you get it, what you can do is just put a little pressure on it and start to pull it apart. A little bit at a time. And eventually you'll work it and get it off. Once you get that thing in there though, it's there to stay. So make sure once it's wired up, you're good to go. What I'm going to do is take a little bit of tape and I'm going to cover this hole so no air can get through. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this string and I'm going to feed it into this hole. Now remember, this hole meets the hole that goes straight up and down. So now I'll set this up, and then I'm going to get a very large, loud vacuum. I'm going to get it the shop vac. And we're going to hook it up here, and basically we're going to suck that string from down here all the way up to here. Pretty cool trick. I used to do this with motorcycles, running cables through the bars, and I'm sure this is going to work, so let's give it a rip here. There, once it catches, and down, here we go. Check it out. Right down here. That there. Another thing that I had to do too was on the end of some of this string line that you use, just get a regular lighter and, you know, clean up the tip of it. Alright, so we mentioned these wires earlier. Now, according to the instructions, you want to find the one with the ribbing, and I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's some ribbing on the edge right here. So there's one with writing on it and one with ribbing. The ribbing is the neutral, and the neutral one is what we're going to hook up to the silver screw. So I know the one on the right is going to go to the silver, this one's going to go gold, and then we've got it wired in the right phase. So that's our next step. We're going to screw this on, but first, this is a good step. Don't forget, this thing, you can squeeze it, get it out of there. You got to put this one down first. So this, you don't want to wire it up because then you have to disconnect it. Once that's done, then you can go ahead, wire it up, put the bottom on it, and then screw it together. Just tighten that down. There's a little set screw right here. Just want to tighten that down once you get it on there, and after that we are done. So we're going to wrap up this little bit, put this back in there once we're finished up, and we'll show you a finished product. Okay, this is our finished product. Thanks everybody for watching. The wife loved it. So if this was helpful, please click the like button and consider subscribing for more videos. Have a great day.